After being blind for 10 years, I finally regained my sight. My wife was still kneeling beside me, praying devoutly to Buddha. I vowed to sacrifice 10 years of my lifespan for my beloved's health. The abbot praised her loyalty, while nearby visitors wept with emotion. Yet I glimpsed the name written on her prayer plaque, her ex-boyfriend's. Her best friend mouthed silently to her. "Aren't you afraid of getting caught?" She sneered. "A blind man, even if he finds out, wouldn't dare leave me." That night, the blind man left divorce papers on the table and disappeared. On the day we routinely visited the temple, my vision returned. My wife Bai Jingjing knelt as usual in her pristine white dress. This devotee vows 10 years of lifespan for my beloved's health. Visiting the temple on our anniversary had been our tradition. The familiar abbot commended Bai Jingjing's devotion, drawing tears from tourists. They helped her hang the prayer plaque on the highest branch of the temple's ginkgo tree. The plaque bore the name Zhang Yuezhi. Yet my name isn't Zhang Yuezhi. That's Bai Jingjing's ex-boyfriend. I, who had wanted to surprise her with my regained sight, stood staring blankly as it all unfolded. Her friend who accompanied us brazenly mouthed in sign language before me. "Aren't you afraid of getting caught being this bold?" Bai Jingjing sneered. "Fear what? Even if this blind man notices, he'd never dare leave me." Her overconfidence was completely visible to my restored vision, making my stomach churn nauseously. As I swayed unsteadily, Bai Jingjing came to embrace me. Her familiar shower gel fragrance reached my nose, but brought no comfort this time. "You should have told me you were unwell. I'll take you to the hospital." I instinctively asked. "What about your meeting later?" "Cancel it." Her anxious demeanor seemed genuine, willing to forego even crucial meetings. In daily life, she always puts me first, responds to everything, giving me the illusion of being surrounded by love. But immediately after, she signals her accompanying secretary to come help me into the car. The secretary speaks, emitting the same voice as hers. "Work isn't as important as you? I'll accompany you to the hospital." Her warm hand pats my back to comfort me, yet gives me a creepy feeling. Beside us, Bai Jingjing is mouthing to her friend. "Let's go celebrate Zhang Yuezhi's birthday." In an instant, I understood everything. Why Bai Jingjing knew it was our anniversary, yet claimed to be busy every year. Why she's such a busy person, yet could balance life and me. So deceiving a blind person was this easy. I sit in the car, the scenery outside the window changing, full of novelty to a once blind person who regained sight. Yet I have no heart to appreciate any of it, the sunglasses perfectly concealing my restored vision. I am proprietary my mind as memories pull me to recall that name, Zhang Yuezhi. The first time I heard of him was before I lost my sight. He was a junior 1 year below me, a dazzling campus celebrity like the midday sun. The second time came after I went blind, when friends mentioned Bai Jingjing dating Zhang Yuezhi. But at the time, Bai Jingjing was already my girlfriend. That night, when Bai Jingjing didn't return home, I had mentally prepared to break up. Yet at dawn, a hungover Bai Jingjing opened the door and hugged me while sobbing. "Sushi, I only have you left. Let's get married." She hadn't gone on a date with Zhang Yuezhi. She was sending him abroad. After his flight departed yesterday afternoon, she drowned her sorrows at bars all night. She didn't betray me. She just went to bid farewell to her grand, unrequited teenage crush, to give it closure. Back then, I presumptuously thought she chose to stay because she loved me more than Zhang Yuezhi. She would drink all night over Zhang Yuezhi's departure, yet remained utterly composed when facing me. During holidays, when mischievous children played pranks on me, she never stopped them. Whenever I got angry, she would say, "Don't you like children the most?" I told her repeatedly that I didn't, yet she kept forgetting. Intuition told me that only intentional matters could be forgotten this quickly. The ridiculous part was how I kept lying to myself, blaming her poor memory. She didn't forget. She chose to remember someone else instead. The secretary drove me home. When the door opened, I froze in place. I even doubted my newly restored vision. "Jingjing, what color is our home's decor?" The secretary answered, "It's the blue and white scheme you love most." Lies. Brown solid wood furniture with antique furnishings. Where's the slightest trace of minimalist blue and white style? I remember when Bai Jingjing let me decorate according to my preferences. I clearly told the workers I liked fresh, elegant color schemes. But now, the home I've lived in for so long was actually Zhang Yu's favorite style. Suddenly, I understood the workers' laughter back then. I had thought they were mocking my blindness, only to realize they were laughing at my obliviousness to being deceived. The secretary helped me into the bedroom. I sat numbly on the bed, staring intently at the photo frame on the wall. The spot where our wedding photo should have been was now occupied by a picture of a man and woman holding hands. My heart ached unbearably. I couldn't accept that I'd been living a lie all this time. As sunlight faded with the sunset, I heard the sound of the front door opening and closing. Bai Jingjing returned. She rushed eagerly to the bedside and hugged me. "Husband, I love you so much." Nowadays, The scent of her body wash was now covered by men's cologne. Before I could speak, she left bedroom humming. Husband, I'll open a bottle of wine. Let's spend the evening at home. Her phone on the bed vibrated, and what first caught my eye was her screensaver, the silhouette of a man's back. That definitely wasn't me. 3 messages followed immediately. Thank you, sister, for granting my wish to have dinner together. I was really happy today. I'm back in the country. Are you still going to stay with that replacement? I don't want to make things difficult for you, but I can't live without you. My heart plummeted to the abyss as Bai Jingjing's voice calling me to dinner came from outside the door. I told myself I must get everything clarified with Bai Jingjing today. I won't allow our years of relationship to become a joke. At the very least, it should end with dignity. But when I opened the door, I froze on the spot. Sitting on the sofa was a man who looked 70 to 80% similar to me. Corners of his lips curved in an amused smile as he stared at me. Bai Jingjing said, "We have a guest today, a distant cousin. Let's have dinner together later." Emerging from the kitchen, she chided affectionately. "Sushi, why are you still wearing those sunglasses at home?" I choked back a sob. My eyes are unusually uncomfortable today. My guide dog Xiaoxi circled around my feet, silently comforting me. Even the dog could sense the anomaly, yet my wife, the one who shares my bed, merely responded coldly with an "oh" before inviting her cousin to dinner. Bai Jingjing rarely cooked, but today she laid out a full spread of well-prepared dishes. Watching the couple exchanging flirtatious glances across the table, I lost all courage to confront them. Instead, a wave of nausea churned in my stomach. The housekeeper had been bullying me, often skipping meals or leaving me hungry, which led to my chronic stomach condition. I'd mentioned this to Bai Jingjing several times. Each time, she promised to fire her, and each time, she forgot. Yet now, this woman with a poor memory remembered every detail of Zhang Yuezhi's preferences, peeling shrimp and serving him dishes with precision. I excused myself early, unwilling to interrupt their intimacy. That night, I went to bed long before midnight, marking the end of our marriage anniversary and the end of us. Fragmented memories from university days turned into dreams, and I woke up intermittently several times during the night. Bai Jingjing was a Bashaojie who commanded wind and rain, radiant as the blazing sun. Occasionally, friends said I resembled the junior she pursued. I quickly denied it, yet felt secretly delighted inside. Only I knew how many times I'd fantasized about standing by her side. Later, when I became blind due to a fire, expressing my feelings became even more impossible. Back then, as I packed my belongings to drop out while sightless, surrounded by pointing and whispering crowds, she stepped in front of me. Let me see anyone dare laugh again. In the silenced atmosphere, she held my hand and walked me out of campus. Afterwards, my mother said someone had covered all my medical expenses and even hired a Braille teacher for me. I thought it was just her momentary whim, but she repeatedly barged into my life. Then she confessed her feelings, and we became a couple. Only later did I discover she did this despite her parents. Her parents disapproved of her being with a junior who had lost his voice in a fire, so she found a blind man who looked similar to rebel against them. Perhaps even she never expected this act of defiance would last 10 years. But now that Zhang Yuezhi has returned from abroad, all her actions have foreshadowed our ending. I woke up early the next day, signed the divorce agreement, and prepared to leave with Xiaoxi. I encountered Zhang Yuezhi again. He had stayed in the guest room next door last night, now blocking my path with a malicious smirk while stretching out his foot. I mercilessly stepped over it. He fell to the ground in pain, but couldn't utter a sound. Bai Jingjing rushed out from the bedroom upon hearing the noise. Yuezhi. She pushed me away without hesitation and helped the fallen Zhang Yuezhi up. As I crashed into the table corner, I gasped in pain, yet it drew no attention from her. Sushi, can't you watch where you're walking? You bumped into my cousin, she angrily scolded. But isn't it laughable to ask a blind man to watch his step? The moment she heard movement in her sleep, she rushed out without noticing the divorce papers on the pillow. The way she threw herself at Zhang Yuezhi made me see her true nature. I was grateful for this awakening. It wasn't too late to walk away now. Zhang Yuezhi wrote in her palm. I could clearly read, with you nearby, I don't feel any pain. Bai Jingjing, heartbroken for him, screamed at me. Sushi, apologize to my cousin right now. I ignored her and headed for the door. She didn't ask where I was going, just spat venom. Pretending to be deaf? Fine. Never come back then. For 3 days I stayed in a rented cottage, flooding the job market with resumes. Without a college degree, my options were brutally limited. Only one company offered me janitorial work. Little she became my only companion after work. Bai Jingjing never came looking for me in all this time. Whether she knew I'd regained vision or not, she wouldn't have come. Just like how she boasted to her friends that I'd never dare leave her. Eternally confident I'd break first. That day, I took Xiaoxi to the pet store for a bath. While waiting, I saw Zhang Yuezhi walk in through the door carrying a stray cat. Accompanying him was Bai Jingjing. They didn't notice me. I pulled down my hat brim, watching their every interaction clearly. Zhang Yu. Ji wrote in her palm, and she patiently responded. Yu Ezhi, rescuing stray cats, shows such kindness, completely unlike that blind man. His leaving wasn't your fault. Don't dwell on it, he's just too petty. When you saved me from the fire and damaged your voice, how could I bear to let you suffer more? Zhang Yuezhi stepped forward to embrace Bai Jingjing, who did not resist. After a long while, Bai Jingjing pushed him away with reddened eyes and went to the restroom to compose herself. Then my phone rang. Su Shi, what's with the divorce papers? Stop this nonsense and come back. What is this? Guilt after betrayal? Come back to what? Watch you fill our home with photos of your white moonlight. You've regained your sight? I answered softly, just in time to see Zhang Yuezhi casually toss the stray cat onto the ground. Where was any trace of that little white rabbit demeanor now? What shocked me even more was hearing him speak. Just put it to sleep and tell my girlfriend it couldn't be saved. I'm not adopting this kind of trash. He wasn't mute at all. He was even arguing with the staff with righteous indignation. Meanwhile, Bai Jingjing's impatient roar came through the phone. Why didn't you tell me your sight returned? Was it fun to mess with me? After all my worrying. Get home now. Bai Jingjing hated secrets most, but what would she do if she knew her white moonlight was just like me? Thinking this, I calmly turned my phone towards Zhang Yuezhi's direction. Your lover's voice has recovered. Was it temple blessings that worked, or has he been faking illness to deceive you? At that moment, Zhang Yuezhi noticed Xiao Shi emerging from bathing and spotted me. He rushed to hang up the phone. You were never blind. I was just cured. And you? Aren't you the one who's been pretending all along? I laughed coldly at him, pointing towards the bathroom direction. Guess whether I told Bai Jingjing about this just now? Zhang Yuezhi smiled instead of getting angry. Then who do you think she'll believe? Me or you? You'll always be just a substitute. That's still infinitely better than someone who insisted on going abroad back then, only to return now and become a homewrecker. The composure on Zhang Yuezhi's face shattered as he reached out to grapple with me. Years of neglecting physical training due to blindness left me far weaker than him. But just as he was about to pin me down, he suddenly stumbled backward and fell to the floor. Looking up, I inevitably met Bai Jingjing's furious gaze. What the hell are you doing? Bullying others just because you've recovered? Beside her, Zhang Yuezhi's gesturing hands elicited tender concern in her eyes. If only she'd glance at me once more, she'd see my reddened wrists and disheveled collar, but she didn't. You just framed Yu Ji as not being mute. If he weren't mute, how could you bully him like this without him crying out? Su Shi, how did you become like this? I stared blankly at Bai Jingjing, finally shaking my head. I thought she knew me best, but turns out she understands me least. She doesn't understand Zhang Yuezhi either. If she truly did, how could she fail to recognize that voice from the phone? My self-mocking smile was mistaken by Bai Jingjing as an admission. Apologize now, and I can pretend none of this ever happened, including the divorce. I nearly laughed in anger. Don't you understand? I truly want to divorce you. After regaining my sight, whether it's your voice actor secretary, you dragging me to pray for Zhang Yuezhi's blessings, or all those photos of him at home, I've seen them all with my own eyes. There's no possibility for us. Only then did her expression shift. Those were old decorations, but I've changed now. I can explain everything, I said coldly. Explain how you deceived a blind man. I ignored both her and Zhang Yuezhi, who was gloating, and walked away. Afterwards, Bai Jingjing called me many times. I directly blocked her number. She contacted me again using Zhang Yuezhi's phone number. Su Shi, the previous divorce agreement was lost. I reprinted a copy. Could you come over to sign it again? At the time, I was working and didn't agree directly, instead sending my company address. Just sign it and mail it here. Do you hate me so much that you won't even tell me your address? I didn't answer, simply hanging up the phone. There were too many floors to clean. I didn't dare dwell on the suppressed complex emotions, afraid that if I let my guard down even slightly, those agonizing emotions would overwhelm and consume me. Soon, the phone rang again, but the caller wasn't Bai Jingjing. Zhang Yuezhi's undisguised mockery came through the receiver. From the text, you're actually at the same company as me. TSK. Though I remember our company hasn't hired any new staff recently, except for some janitorial workers. As his words fell, my gaze collided with Zhang Yuezhi's as he entered through the main gate. He raised an eyebrow at me, popped open the Coke can, poured it out, and stomped on it. Sunlight glinted off his tailored suit, starkly contrasting my blue work uniform. His smile dripped venom. TSK, TSK, TSK. There's trash here. Come clean it up. His tone was like calling a dog, yet I desperately needed this job. I knelt before him, quietly scrubbing the floor with neither humility nor defiance. He no longer bothered hiding his true self around me, but I lacked the will to confront him. If Bai Jingjing could believe a mute was an executive of a listed conglomerate, what couldn't people believe? Transferred to his department, I shouldered 3 people's workloads while enduring his constant barbs. His subordinate's first words upon seeing me. Why's he look so familiar? Zhang's long-lost brother. Me? Have such a brother? Just a thief coveting my identity. They all knew Zhang Yueji's college lover had waited faithfully for years before settling for a replacement. In an instant, their eyes shifted. Shamelessly acting as a substitute, got kicked out now? They say he didn't even finish college. What a disgrace working as a janitor. Not even worth one of Brother Zhang's fingers. They remained ignorant of the glorious deeds of their beloved brother Zhang, pretending to be mute while being the other woman. They simply kept bullying me. Mysterious coffee spills on the floor, never-ending trash, constant errand running. For someone who'd recently regained vision and had frail health, this became an unbearable burden. Finally, during one such errand, my legs gave out. I collapsed heavily on the ground. Before losing consciousness, I saw a familiar figure rushing toward me. I woke in that familiar hospital, the scent of lilies lingering in the air. I'd come here countless times during college. Every time Bai Jingjing visited me, she'd bring lilies. Did she save me? Struggling to get up and leave, I heard the door open, but it wasn't her. Don't move. You're still recovering. It was Bai Jingjing's secretary, who even spoke in that same tone imitating Bai Jingjing. Even if she saved me, I still want a divorce. I instinctively warned, but to my surprise, the secretary laughed. It wasn't her, it was me who saved you. Perhaps sensing her blunt delivery, she added while waving her hand, I don't want your gratitude. I'm just repaying a debt. I scratched my head in confusion. She chuckled lightly. Senior, you saved my life from that university fire. Her words jogged my memory. During the classroom fire, I'd rushed in searching for Bai Jingjing. When a beam collapsed, I pushed another student away and got trapped underneath. That's how I lost my sight. The secretary leaned closer. In ancient times, this would have required me to pledge myself to you. But you already had Bai Jingjing by your side then. So I applied to be her secretary, staying by you like a shadow. Pretty foolish, wasn't it? I listened in shock to her story, utterly at a loss for how to respond. Her face flushed red with an awkward expression. I'm sorry for keeping you in the dark all these years. I lowered my gaze and asked, how long have you been doing this? Since you lost your sight in college. When was it you? And when was it her beside me? For the first 3 years, it was mostly me. Occasionally she would come. The secretary's voice grew softer. At this moment, everything became clear. No wonder Bai Jingjing's attitude always felt hot and cold. The person who loved me passionately all along was actually her. I noticed T. He name on the secretary's work badge, Bai Xin. Then I saw the scar on her left hand. Suddenly, I remembered that day when I left university. Bai Jingjing helped drive away those mocking me, and when she took my hand, I felt uneven ridges on her palm. Who helped chase off the mockers when I dropped out? It was me. I'm sorry I used her voice back then. I knew you liked her and wanted you to feel more secure. After the confession, Bai Xin received an alarm notification and hurriedly left. I could tell she was embarrassed. I thought she wouldn't come again, but day after day, she bought lilies to the hospital. The hospital food didn't suit me, so she started cooking and packing meals herself. The flavors in the food were achingly familiar. I remembered that day when Bai Jingjing personally cooked for Zhang Yueji, dishes mostly containing things I was allergic to. So this was why. Every personally made meal from Bai Jingjing before had actually come from Bai Xin. Every detail that moved me about Bai Jingjing carried traces of her presence. Until discharge day, Bai Jingjing never came to see me. Instead, divorce papers accurately arrived at the hospital. After signing them, I directly brought the documents to Zhang Yueji during work hours. Finally got some sense. Zhang Yueji gloated, yet showed no mercy. He assigned me the heaviest workload, demanding I clean the company's abandoned conference room before afternoon. Fresh out of the hospital and drenched in sweat, I had barely finished the work when he ordered me to immediately brew 2 cups of tea for clients, specifically demanding his prized tea leaves. When I entered with the 2 cups of tea enduring pain, he roared at me. What's wrong with you? How can 3 people drink 2 cups of tea? People would think we're neglecting our guests. My apologies, I'll brew more tea. As I hurried to leave, he tripped me. The tea splashed directly onto the client. You useless fool. He raised his hand high to strike, but was intercepted by a figure rushing through the doorway. Bai Xin in her crisp work uniform sneered. Is this how your company treats subordinates? I think we should terminate our cooperation. At this moment, Bai Xin radiated authority. I watched the client bow obsequiously to her, addressing her as young mistress. Zhang Yueji kept apologizing. This was a misunderstanding. Ignoring him, Bai Xin took my hand and led me to rinse with cold water in the restroom. When we came out again, we just in time to see the boss scolding Zhang Yueji at the entrance. Zhang Yueji came to apologize, but Bai Xin turned to ask me, did you hear the mute speak? Bai Xin knew all about Zhang Yueji's dirty deeds. I shook my head amusedly, and she directly terminated the agreement. It said Zhang Yuezhi was demoted because of this and flew into a rage. But that's none of them. Why concern? I'd already switched jobs to buy Xian's company. I also heard Zhang Yuezhi wanted to send someone to screw me over. No, to renegotiate the agreement and salvage his position. The person helping Zhang Yuezhi with renegotiations was Bai Jingjing. She stared in astonishment at Bai Xian's transformation into the CEO, then gave me a peculiar smile upon seeing me. The trash I discarded, you're really persistent with it. Bai Xian slammed the documents on the table. You're not here to negotiate. Please leave. Bai Jingjing kept staring at me while addressing Bai Xian. After groveling around me all these years, surely it wasn't just for some man like this. Wanna bet he'll come crawling if I crook my finger? As she spoke, she clicked across the floor in her high heels toward the door and waved at me. Under Bai Xian's bewildered gaze, I followed her out. Su Shi, I knew you still loved me. The moment we stepped outside, Bai Jingjing threw herself into my arms. She wore the dress I had personally chosen for her today. Back when I was blind, she had guided my hands over countless dresses before settling on this one. Even without having seen it with my own eyes, I recognized it instantly. Husband, you know me. I was just angry before. She rarely called me husband, and this sudden tenderness felt like a return to our newlywed days. But the next moment, she said, can you ask Bai Xian not to terminate Yuji's contract? I sobered instantly and pushed her away. No. Why? Yuji worked so hard to become a manager despite being mute. How can you be so heartless and selfish? Why should I help a homewrecker who destroyed someone else's marriage? She gritted her teeth but managed to suppress her anger. Husband, please. This is what I owe Zhang Yuezhi. Just this once. You love me so much, you'll definitely help me, right? No, I don't love you. The only reason I came out with you was to prevent you from misunderstanding Bai Xinqing. I could see Bai Xinqing liked me and had done so much for me. Now that I'm in such a wretched state, I can't respond to her feelings. That's why I chose to go out with Bai Jingjing to break her heart completely. I sighed. Wasn't the divorce agreement already signed? Let's find some time to formalize the certificate. But Bai Jingjing widened her eyes. Signed? When did I sign? No matter. You can sign it when we officially get the divorce certificate. Let's meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau entrance at 9 a.m. tomorrow. She desperately grabbed my collar in disbelief. Are you in such a hurry to leave me? I won't ask you to help Zhang Yuezhi anymore. Come back, okay? Realizing I was truly determined to leave, she abandoned all dignity and clutched at me, tears streaming down. I love you. I really can't live without you. What will I do without you? She had long grown accustomed to the blind man at home waiting for her with lights on every night, regarding her as his sole salvation, always yielding to her. She called this love, while I called it habit. The weeping attracted many onlookers, who gathered around pointing fingers at me. While I endured others' moral judgment, Bai Xian approached and pulled Bai Jingjing away from clutching me. When the blind him left home for days back then, did you ever think of him while ignoring him completely? When carousing with your junior, did you remember him enduring loneliness and darkness at home? You didn't try to stop him before the divorce, and now you're trying to make amends when it's too late? Bai Xian's words left Bai Jingjing utterly ashamed. Over these years, she had always stayed by my side, Bai Jingjing's shadow, understanding her better than anyone. Onlookers who learned the truth dispersed, many casting sympathetic glances my way. Yet Bai Jingjing still refused to accept reality. No, Su Shi still loves me. There's still hope for us. Whatever love existed belonged to the past. I didn't respond. Bai Xian shielded me and snapped. You should really go check your brain. Oh wait, of course, someone who believes a mute can become a corporate executive and negotiate business deals with clients. What's even the point of having a functioning brain? Coincidentally, Bai Xian's phone rang at that moment. A call from Zhang Yuezhi offering an apology. Miss Bai, I was wrong before. Our company needs to improve our treatment of employees, but our business practices will definitely provide your company with excellent service. Bai Xian deliberately put it on speakerphone. Bai Jingjing's face visibly turned crimson red. She clenched her fists, shot me a profound glance, then walked away. Perhaps she was thinking, this was something I'd warned her about before. If only she'd believed me then. But there are no second chances. Watching her retreating figure, I was surprised to find myself feeling utterly unruffled. There wasn't even much satisfaction in my heart. Maybe because the current Bai Jingjing and Zhang Yuezhi simply don't matter to me anymore. Bai Xian poked my arm. So, was I a bit too harsh earlier? I shook my head. If possible, I too would like to live so spitefully just once. But I never expected this opportunity would come so soon. Bai Jingjing dragged her feet about the divorce while inquiring after me with feigned concern day after day. She would spend half a day preparing bento boxes, waiting early outside the company entrance just to ensure I ate her homemade meals. Yet I merely glanced at them once before tossing the containers into the trash. Her eyes widened incredulously. How could you trample on me like this? I'm allergic to seafood, I stated without changing my expression. If her whimsical attempts at amends could truly heal the wounds of these years, the divorce counters at the Civil Affairs Office would have long closed down. Time may heal physical scars, but not emotional wounds. This doesn't apply to me, yet works wonders for her. Like now, with Zhang Yuezhi standing by her side, defending her cause. Though he'd withheld the truth from her just as I had, he was effortlessly forgiven within weeks. Sis, divorce him. I won't let you debase yourself like this. Bai Jingjing shook her head and persisted in waiting for me every noon at the company entrance. Finally, one day she suffered heat stroke. Zhang Yuezhi immediately brought people to confront me, accusing me of not cherishing the relationship. He even claimed I got my job by clinging to a sugar mommy. A colleague directly slapped my performance report in his face. I heard you graduated from the same university as Su Shi. She didn't even finish college, yet her performance is multiples of yours. Some people still need to beg their sister to fix contract issues. I don't know where they get the nerve to mock others. Company security directly threw them out. Later I heard Zhang Yuezhi even lost his job because of the disturbance. After this incident, Bai Jingjing finally decided to divorce me. The unemployed Zhang Yuezhi began pursuing her vigorously. How did I know? Because she personally told me. She's always been like this, wanting to have her cake and eat it too. I immediately deleted all her contact information. Then I heard they got together, even sending me an engagement banquet invitation. The date coincidentally fell exactly on the anniversary of my relationship with Bai Jingjing. Was this deliberately trying to disgust me? As I debated whether to make an excuse, Bo Xin approached me with a video recording. This was found in the old campus. Bo Xin said the content involved not just me, but also my ex-wife and her fiancé. The footage clearly documented the truth behind the fire. Zhang Yuezhi had intentionally set the blaze, then rushed in to rescue Bai Jingjing while the flames were still small. Bo Xin frowned in confusion. Why would he do this? Maybe to stage a heroic rescue to win her favor. Bo Xin nodded, then played the next clip showing me lunging to rescue her during the incident. She kept rewinding the footage, her eyes glimmering faintly. You saved me, my life is yours. Let's take this to the police. I'll make those who hurt you pay. I nodded, our proximity shrinking with each step. But the top priority was dealing with Zhang Yuezhi's situation. I knew that Bai Jingjing's parents had always looked down on Zhang Yuezhi, who came from grassroots origins, so Zhang Yuezhi wanted to change their perception through this method. What he didn't anticipate was that his temporary voice loss would lead to Bai Jingjing's parents sending him abroad. Later, when he returned from overseas, I was already by Bai Jingjing's side. He then pretended to be mute, exploiting Bai Jingjing's guilt to sabotage our marriage. What a sinister and terrifying person he was. I kindly called Bai Jingjing to warn her. Zhang Yuezhi is not simple. You'd better postpone the engagement banquet. Not only did Bai Jingjing dismiss my advice, she mocked me. Are you afraid I'll have a better life than you? The consequence of her distrust was the police publicly arresting Zhang Yuezhi at the engagement banquet in front of everyone. At the time, Bai Jingjing was already pregnant. She pounded on him desperately, ignoring her own health, but no amount of regret could undo what had happened. That night, Bai Jingjing called me. I'm sorry. I didn't understand what she meant. She continued. I always felt like I owed Zhang Yuezhi, but now it seems both he and I owe you. If not for him, you wouldn't have gone blind. And I ended up hurting both you and myself by being with you out of spite. The apologies kept pouring through the phone, but I remained silent. Finally, she wept again. The child in my womb is actually yours. But by the time I found out, we'd already separated. He said he'd take care of the child, so I agreed to the engagement. After a long pause, I responded, abort it. Whether she was lying or not, keeping this child wouldn't be wise. Neither I nor Zhang Yuezhi could give this child a complete family. Bai Jingjing sobbed uncontrollably, unable to speak. After crying for what felt like ages, she pleaded, it's truly yours. After birth, you can do a paternity test. I'm sorry, I can't give you what you want. I have Bai Xian now. Just yesterday, Bai Xian confessed her feelings to me, and I accepted. During my darkest days, she walked every step with me. I won't betray her. There were indistinct murmurs on the other end of the phone, then Bai Jingjing hung up. Later she miscarried, resigned from her position in the family business, and left alone for another province. I heard she opened a flower shop that sold only lilies.